Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to Semaphore Uncut, a podcast for developers about building great products. I'm Olga, a product marketing manager at Semaphore. In this new episode, Darko, the podcast host, welcomes Caro Griffin, TechLadies Vice President. Caro and Darko talk about the gender gap in tech and how tech communities can help to close it. I hope you enjoyed this new episode, and let's dive in.
Caro, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Excited to chat.
Great. Can you please just go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Caro Griffin, or Caroline Syrup, as I'm known on most places on the internet. I started my career as a developer back in the day, but made the transition to operations pretty early and have been there, loving it ever since. These days, I'm the vice president of operations at TechLadies, which is the largest community for women in tech. So our community of over 100,000 women working in tech, mostly in engineering, product, and design, but we have tech ladies from all over doing all of the things that kind of power tech startups these days. And really specifically, I focus on our hiring services. So helping, top talent in our community connect with great startups that are looking to hire and grow their engineering teams in particular.
For the people that are not aware with your organization, can you give us a bit of an intro, how it came about, and
any of us who've been in the industry for a while know that your network is such an asset to have with your career. It's how you get opportunities. It's how you meet more people. It's how you grow your skills. And so that's really what we're about at TechLadies, is providing opportunities of all kinds, whether that's job opportunities or educational opportunities, networking opportunities. We really want to be the one-stop shop to help women grow their careers in tech and to help them stay in tech and give them the support that they need to do that. And so what really just started out as a free community and kind of a newsletter, then spawned a job board, and now kind of this whole hiring services arm that we can talk more about, as well as a more intimate paid community for TechLadies. And, we have a whole virtual event series. So we're always doing, different things to try to meet our audience where they are and what they're looking for in their career.
Wanted to ask, what's your maybe personal snapshot when you started your career as a developer versus now, number of years later?
I learned to code when I was a kid. I was 10, 12 when I wrote code for the first time. And, it was always kind of the nerdy technical kid, but also really artsy. So I went to art school after high school back in Chicago, and graduated with an interdisciplinary art degree, which is rife with career opportunities, obviously. And so I kind of fell back on what I knew, could be commercially viable. I started freelancing and started teaching web development to teenagers on the side in an after-school program in Chicago, and really fell in love with kind of technical education. And so I ended up, I worked in online, higher education, building online courses for a little while, and then ended up at my first startup, which was called Skill Crash. And it's one of the largest, in terms of student enrollment, one of the largest boot camps for people to learn to code and to learn digital skills. And so I was there and taught, and also kind of built the operational side of the company for almost 6 years before I found TechLadies and just got really excited about the opportunity to kind of help women in tech from a different angle. And so that's just kind of become my life's passion, I guess, is to really support other women in tech and to kind of, it's more fun when there's more of us here.
On our side, I'm sad to say that in our technical team, we have 0 women now. At the peak, we had 4. But unfortunately, I don't know, it just ended being like it is today.
And that's unfortunately not an uncommon situation. As a general, I won't speak for all women, but as a general rule, no one wants to be the only one. No one wants to be the first one. And so it's definitely hard to counteract that. And so something, especially when I talk to early stage teams, I'm like, now's the time to really, to set that culture, to prioritize that, to invest into hiring a team that looks like you want it to look now and in 10 years from now.
We were lucky 10 years ago because we were part of Ruby on Rails community. And original version of Semaphore was built on Ruby on Rails. And until maybe 3 years ago, that was our primary platform. And then in early 2010s, there is still now, it's called Rails Girls, like community building. And that helped us at that stage because just more people knew about us, from the local community, more women. And I think that we were maybe not even aware that was the area when, That's one of the reasons why we haven't, had a problem with that, having a more diverse team. More both Ruby on Rails communities that were existed, locally here have kind of, not that active anymore. Rails Girls also existed for maybe a couple of, maybe like 5 years or so, maybe a bit more. But over time, that also unfortunately disappeared.
Yeah, it's a lot of like unglamorous, unpaid work, right? And it's hard to make community work sustainable. TechLadies, we think about that a lot, right? Because like at the end of the day, we're a community. And so how do you make this sustainable so that people can be paid to work on it and work on it full time and like give it the effort and the time it deserves, right? Because like I was a big fan of Rails Girls back in the day and had a lot of friends who were like, very involved with the core team, particularly in Berlin. And like that's really sad to hear that like that was such a great entry point for so many women into the language, but also and into that community, but also for companies who are hiring, right?
Yeah. You mentioned there is a piece of advice that you give to, tech lead CTOs, whoever founders, and, it's up to them to do it or not. Feel free to share that.
It really comes down to, I think, first and foremost, meeting people where they are. And so if you're only hiring from your network or from the places that you hang out, you're going to find people who look like you, who, have a similar education or a similar socioeconomic background. And so really, I think and it takes longer, right? Like I'm the first one to say that like, it's going to be more expensive and it's going to take longer. You really have to, I think, buy in on the fact that a diverse team is a more profitable functional team and that like those benefits are going to pay in dividends later. Because I think if you're doing this as lip service or to have women in a staff photo so you don't get called out on Twitter, it's not going to work. So when I say like meet people where they are, I think it is about finding these organizations like Rails Girls, like TechLadies, like, there's just so many different ones for not only women, but for people of color and for, military spouses and like people who just have all these different backgrounds who I can point to specific scenarios where hiring people who are different than me, like they were able to be in a meeting and point out something that I never would have thought of because I didn't have that experience, right? So I think starting there and by investing in not just posting a job on a job board and calling it a day. Like, okay, I did it. I paid the bill. I checked the box, right? But like, how do you get involved in these communities? How do you show up to their demo days, their portfolio reviews for bootcamp grads? How do you sponsor their meetups? How do you like present at their conferences? How do you like make yourself known in the community? TechLadies, we have a whole success stories page on our website, which is hiretechladies.com/success. And I think it's so interesting to go through and see these testimonials from women who got hired at our partner companies who were like seeing that they were partners with TechLadies for months. I was always seeing their job postings. I was always seeing them at events and things like that. It showed me that they cared, like that they were invested, that this wasn't a lip service thing. And so I think that goes a long way. And then I think it's also about your job descriptions. It's not just running it through like Textio. It's like really looking at it and making sure that every requirement on your job posting is an actual requirement. And so something I really encourage our hiring managers to do a lot is to look at them and say, could an otherwise really stellar applicant do this job without this thing? Then it's not a requirement. It's a nice to have. So like maybe we should move it to that section. And so like, how do we not only sell the job, but use this as a marketing tool? Like your job description think of it as a sales page because that's what it is. It should pitch your company, your mission, your product, get someone to believe in that instead of just being like a wish list of like everything you need in this person. You don't want to discourage all applicants from applying. You want to get as many as you can and then sort through them later, right? And so I think being really open about compensation, about benefits, about your values, about what your team is like, about who they're going to be working with. These are all some really specific things that I've seen companies have a lot of success with lately, like even just like linking to the LinkedIns of like who they're going to work with on the team and like what the background of those people is, because like more information is going to be better, particularly from people in tech who are used to feeling like the odd person out on their team and feeling like they don't belong. Giving them more information up front can be really helpful. And number one, compensation and benefits are like that's like the biggest leverage point that you have. And it like brings the biggest return. particularly for candidates in our community that we've seen. And then I would say my third big piece of advice is to not rely just on job boards. And on communities, it's to more proactively go after candidates, whether that be on LinkedIn or using something like a candidate database, a resume book. So TechLadies, we have a candidate database. We realized that it wasn't enough for our partners to be able to just put job postings up on a job board, because that requires a candidate to be looking at the job board during that 2-week period where it was live, and to have time to apply and fill out what might be a long application at that point. And so by building a candidate database where we have, some of our best candidates, we have all of their information ready for our hiring managers so that you can proactively reach out to them and pitch them on your job. I think it's a 3-pronged approach. And I think doing all of it is when you're going to get the best results, but even just chipping away at it can make a really big difference.
Microservices architecture is all the rage these days. But do you know what it really means and how to implement it to empower your teams to make the best decision for the problem at hand? On the Semaphore blog, you can learn about microservices and how to take advantage of features like test reports, monorepo, and Docker support to build, test, and deploy your microservice application at scale. Head over to semaphoreCI.com/blog for more information. And happy reading!
Especially the thing when, adjusting the job ad and the job description is that makes a lot of sense. We had a number of iterations where it was what people like to do, 7 years of experience in a very particular technology.
Something I see a lot too is a bachelor's degree in computer science or a master's degree in computer science. And, anyone who's looked at those stats knows that eliminates a lot of women right there, because women are about 10%, depending on what numbers you look at computer science degrees. And that doesn't mean that they don't have the skills. And so I totally get why companies put that on there. They're we really need those object-oriented programming, fundamentals that a lot of, for example, I think the concern is that a lot of boot camp grads don't have those. And so they're trying to weed those out. But it also weeds out a lot of women who are self-taught or learned through an apprenticeship or, on the job experience because they trained, they switched from a marketing department or something. And so instead focusing on how can we rephrase this to be a more inclusive requirement that still gets at what we need, which is we need you to have these particular programming fundamentals. And how do we test for that and screen for that instead of immediately throwing that wall up on the job description?
6 years ago, we dropped, requirements for bachelor degree or master degree in computer science in particular. And then maybe, I'm just, guessing here, but roughly speaking, maybe 3 years later after that, we dropped that, you have to have experience in this particular language, because that really proved that it doesn't make sense. People, just experience showed that people who are just, motivated and wanted to learn and very eager, essentially much better than the people who had experience in that particular language or technology. So that one is I can relate to maybe some, huge companies where there are some very specific tech stacks or something like that. But yeah, that one is really...
Yeah, and there's some situations where you definitely need those requirements, right? We've worked with some where yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, some, super advanced algorithms, that do this and that, and computer science is okay, absolutely a must. But, vast majority of the jobs don't really have those requirements.
Yeah, and so it's just about really prompting yourself to be am I putting on this job description out of habit, or is this something that is really necessary? If this candidate was, you're saying, motivated, driven, a self-starter, really skilled in other areas, I think something that also comes up a lot for me is cool, but could you give them a few weeks to get up to speed on this new library or something? Or do you want to spend those couple weeks continuing to look for someone who already has that experience, right? I've seen companies say no to doing something, and it takes them 6 months longer to make the hire. And I'm you could have upskilled someone in those 6 months, right? And been making progress on your product, on your team, whatever. If you're posting the same job description over and over again in the same places and hoping for a different pool of candidates, I think we found the problem.
Maybe in 2015 was the year where we, hired the first lady into our tech team. Then it was a team of maybe 5 or 6 engineers. And that's actually the point where we went remote. Not fully remote, but we, started becoming a remote company. And yeah, so in my head, it's going to stay connected that, hiring women and, remote kind of are connected things. And, especially with now COVID and, remote being, kind of more than a de facto standard than anything else. Is there a difference that you have seen with your organization, that some things are easier than there was, or?
to really increase like the gradients of what it means to be remote. And that was something like we had to quickly put some definitions around where it's like, it's not remote if you have to be at your office. If you have to be at an office once a week even, or every other week, then it's not a remote role. It's a work from home friendly role is what we consider it. And so being able to kind of encourage partners pretty quickly to say like, to really define what remote means in that context, because now candidates are getting wise to the fact that like remote looks different in different places. And so I think the same advantage that remote companies had 3 years ago in terms of access to a much higher caliber of talent, often for less money, I think is now that same advantage is going to companies who work asynchronously and have more flexible schedules, because before being remote was enough. And now it's that flexibility, which is really what people wanted to begin with the remote context in a lot of ways. It's really honing in on that. And so I really encourage a lot of our hiring partners to focus on like putting a little blurb in the job postings and on their website or their about page, their careers page, about what remote means to them. Even if it's just a couple sentences about like, we are fully remote. We don't expect you to go to the office. We would like you to come to our team retreats twice a year. Or we need you to come to the office once a week. So you need to be in a distance you're willing to commute once a week from this office. Or like we have these core working hours. Or no, you need to be in front of your computer from 9 to 5 Eastern time, no matter what time zone you're in. Or we only hire in the US. We only hire within people who can overlap with these time zones. You know, this like remote USA only has been a big thing that we've seen as well, is so many US startups wanting to go remote, but still only want to hire from the US. And so that's something I'm always trying to like suss out of like, are you really US only, or are you like American time zones only? Like, what are you trying to get at? And so I think as much as companies can like really spell that out, it's going to get you better qualified applicants, and it's just going to take guesswork out.
In terms of like benefits and like maternity leave in particular, is there maybe something that you are seeing how people are handling that, in particular with remote work? Because then it's different. There are different jurisdictions, and you know.
I think a lot of companies are still figuring it out, like myself included. In running ops teams in the past, it's always been pretty difficult, especially for like smaller bootstrap teams in the US. Like our government is not doing right by us, you know, like there's not the institutional support there. But if you want to support women on your team, parental leave is a non-negotiable, right? If you do not have good paid parental leave for both women, men, fostered children, adopted children, for like across the board, like you're going to suffer on a diversity standpoint. And so it's one of the best investments that you can make, but it's also one of the most expensive. Oftentimes it comes down to what can the company afford to pay, and we will standardize that because that's within our control. And then if your government mandates something different or gives you additional benefits, then that is extra, and we will support that to the degree that either A, we're required to, depending on how you're employed, or B, the degree that the business can support it.
Yeah. One reasoning that we had is that just in practice, you know, there were like more men on the team, and you said that's the most expensive benefit. But if you reason about it, that you split it across all employees, you know, employees getting that benefit, maybe a new mother, but as a company, when you distribute it over the team, so it's not that big of investment, depending how you reason about it.
Yeah, no, and I just mean the most expensive benefit, in that like paying for example, if someone goes on leave for 3 months and we have to backfill that role, paying that 3 months of salary is going to be more expensive than paying for someone's health insurance. And so it really, you said it, you have to kind of like, it's like utilization, right? Like you have to go across the whole team. And I think at another thing too, when you start to like look at it from a headcount standpoint too, like really encouraging. Sorry, I'm going to go get on my soapbox for a minute, because I do think one of the best things that like men in tech can do is take their parental leave and to like max it out, not only for like their partners and their children, but also just to like normalize that this is parental leave. It's not just maternal leave, right? And that like men should get the exact same amount of time as women do.
Okay, and let's say for the ladies that are listening to the podcast, can you describe your quote like services, or how does generally your community and you can help women?
Yeah, so we would love to have any women or non-binary individuals in tech join our community. That's what we're here for, is to support you and help you achieve your career goals, no matter what they are. So we do have a free membership at hiretechladies.com. That's our website, and anyone can join. There's a really simple form on the website, and that will hook you up to our free community. So we have like a community group where you can like talk to other tech ladies, and then we have a newsletter, which is kind of our weekly hub on kind of like the events that we're having, whether that's like speed networking or like an informational webinar or a hiring event. And then we also have our job board. And so that's members only as well. And so that's where we work with our hiring partners, help companies post on the job board, but also access our candidate database and connect with tech ladies in a whole bunch of different ways.
People who are maybe just want to get into, customer success in tech or, account management and sales, are all of those positions something that you help with, or is just, development or really tech?
No, we will help any women in any role in tech, and also in technical roles in non-tech companies. It's kind of been a growing population too in our community.
If you can pitch your services to me as like let's say someone who is in a tech position and wants to learn more, how you can help.
I think it's really helping you with all the things that it's hard to make time to do as like a founder or as like a technical leader. And so it's really helping you develop that strategy, which my recommendation is generally to kind of go 3 different prongs. It's like, what can you do to get involved in communities where the people you want to hire are, posting on our job board, and then going directly to the source by reaching out to candidates who match your criteria on the candidate database.
And is there maybe something that I should have asked and I didn't, or a message that should get out there?
If you're a woman in tech, please come join us at TechLadies. We have a lot of fun together. And if you're a hiring partner, I would love to hook you up with some awesome women in tech who are going to be a great fit for your team.
And for the people who want to learn more about you and...
Yeah, sure. I'm carolinesyrup.com and I'm Caroline Syrup on Twitter and Caro Griffin on LinkedIn.
It was a very interesting conversation. Good luck.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
What a great conversation. Caro is really passionate about teaching us the value of sustainable communities and encouraging companies to diversify their teams to grow their business. Make sure to subscribe to Semaphore and Cut on your podcast player of choice so that you don't miss our new episodes. And stay tuned.